Don't worry, nobody will remember your contributions anyway. The words hung in the air of Logan's sleek workspace loft as I stared at the exit package I just signed. 5 years of 70-hour weeks reduced to a digital signature and a dismissive comment. I maintained a neutral expression even as I felt my chest tightening. I appreciate the opportunity, I said, rising from the chair, professional to the end. That's me, Leah Parsons, lead software architect or former senior systems engineer. As of 3 minutes ago, Seth Albbright, our charismatic founder and chief exec, didn't even look up from his laptop. His perfectly styled hair caught the San Diego sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows that had been installed after our seed round came through. $10 million to scale the startup I'd helped build from the ground up. I walked through the open workspace loft space, past rows of devs who had no idea I wouldn't be returning tomorrow. Some of them were working with my repository right now. Repository I'd written during countless all-nighters. Repository that formed the backbone of our entire product. The custom system architecture I designed when we were still working out of that dingy warehouse space downtown when we couldn't afford air conditioning. And I'd keep coding even as sweat dripped down my back. Heading out early, called Kirk Foster from his desk, one of the newer hires who had no idea what was happening. Something like that, I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I packed my personal items quickly. There weren't many. A small plant, a framed photo of my sister's family, and a coffee mug. 5 years, and I could fit my personal effects into a single canvas tote. I'd given everything else to this startup. As I waited for the elevator, I felt a chill creep up my spine. Logan's comment about nobody remembering my contributions wasn't just mean. It was wrong. Every line of that system architecture had my fingerprints on it. The elevator hummed, blending with the steady beat of Leah Parsons' heart. Each floor ticked down like a countdown, and her phone vibrated, a notification she chose to ignore. In the stark fluorescent light, she caught a fleeting glimpse of her reflection. Unyielding resolve settled within her. What if her absence became the ultimate crisis? Cut to Seth Albright's workspace loft. Chaos erupted. Servers flickered ominously, vital documentation lay missing, and junior staff scrambled like deer caught in headlights. Meanwhile, Kirk Foster sat obliviously, eyes glued to lines of repository that once thrived under Leah's guidance. Leah, silent but omnipresent, held the keys to the startup everyone assumed they controlled. Back in the sleek workspace loft she once called home, Leah felt the shadows of doubt creeping in. Just moments ago, Seth Albbright, a charismatic figure whose aloofness masked a cutthroat ambition, had sealed her fate with a casual dismissal. 5 years of relentless dedication reduced to a signature on a severance check and a sneer. How could he be so blind to the foundation she'd built from the ground up? Leah had poured her heart into that startup, poring over every line of repository, feeling the thrill of innovation and the sting of sweat as she turned ideas into reality. Yet here she was, hollowed out and overlooked. As the elevator doors slid shut, the realization struck her. They had no clue what they just lost. She wasn't angry, not yet. Instead, a careful sense of pride washed over her. Each original architecture draft and version log echoed in her mind, all carefully tucked away in the depths of her memory. She'd honed her skills, navigating through a corporate landscape that echoed her father's painful history, a brilliant engineer whose legacy had been snatched away by corporate greed. Leah vowed to ensure her contributions wouldn't vanish into obscurity. In the car, she dialed her attorney, Valerie Knowles. "I've been dismissed," Leah said, her tone steady. "They're bringing in someone with more experience." Valerie's response was calm, reassuring amidst the storm. "And the severance package?" 6 months' salary, standard NDA. Leah took a breath, powering through the realization of what lay ahead. "Smart girl," Valerie replied, her tone warm with approval. "The files you sent over look solid. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss options." As Leah gazed out at the rain-soaked streets, The scent of earth and hope filled the air. She knew her journey was just beginning. No one could erase her imprint on that startup. The story of Leah Parsons, resilient and ready to reclaim her narrative, was far from over. The next day, Leah awakened without the usual jolt to check her work email or scroll through Slack. Instead, she indulged in a rare luxury, sleeping until 9 a.m. for the first time in years. A proper breakfast simmered in her kitchen as she drove to Valerie's workspace loft, basking in an unexpected lightness. Valerie spread the files across her conference table: architecture diagrams, version logs, meticulous emails. They told a story, one that highlighted Leah's pivotal role in developing the custom authentication system that distinguished Quantum Shift's product in a crowded marketplace. "You've been meticulous," Valerie remarked, glancing over the documents. "Yeah, my dad taught me to keep receipts," Leah replied, a hint of pride creeping into her voice. "So, what do you want to do with all this?" Valerie asked, gesturing at Leah's 5 years of hard work. Leah sat back, considering her options. She wasn't vengeful by nature. She'd been raised to seek value in herself, not revenge. "Nothing yet," Leah decided, "but I want to be ready." Valerie nodded, her understanding evident. "They'll come looking for you. Companies like this always do once they realize what they've lost. When they do, we'll be set." Walking out of Valerie's workspace loft, Leah felt an odd sense of peace enfolding her. For the first time in 5 years, her time was her own, and she was determined to use it wisely. 3 weeks after her dismissal, she sat in a sun-kissed beachside cafe, sipping an overpriced latte while scrolling through job listings. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Joseph Bryant, Quantum Shift's CTO, flashed on the screen. "Dana," he said, his voice dripping with forced friendliness. "How have you been?" "Fine, Joseph," Leah replied, her tone cool and collected. "What can I do for you?" "Well, the team has been working on the next release, and they had a few questions about some of your architecture decisions. I was hoping you might have time for a quick consultation." A slow sip of her latte broke the silence. "Consultation?" Leah echoed, intrigued yet cautious. "I'm not sure that would be appropriate given the circumstances of my departure." The air crackled with tension. Could this be the moment she finally regained her footing? Would the tides of recognition finally shift in her favor? What unfolding narrative awaited Leah Parsons? Joseph cleared his throat. "Look, Dana, we're willing to compensate you for your time. Logan may have been hasty in his decision." "Hasty," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" There was a pause. "The documentation is a bit specialized." I almost laughed. Specialized was a polite way of saying that my personal shorthand was incomprehensible to the new team. I had documented everything, yes, but in a way that made perfect sense to me and apparently no one else. "I'm afraid I'm quite busy at the moment," I said. "Perhaps Troy, with his extensive experience, can figure it out." "Dana," Joseph began, but I cut him off. "I wish you all the best, Joseph." "Truly." I ended the call. My phone buzzed immediately with a text from Joseph. "We can double your consultation rate. Please reconsider." I set my phone down without replying. Let them stew for a bit. That evening, as I was making dinner, I received an email from Ethan Wilson, one of the junior devs I had mentored. The subject line read, "She said they want to discuss a consulting arrangement already." I was surprised at how quickly things had escalated. "Apparently, they're having some technical difficulties," Valerie said, her tone deliberately understated. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "I recommend we let them sweat a bit longer," she replied. "The more desperate they get, the better position you'll be in." As I hung up, I felt a shift inside me, the realization that I now held the power in this situation. It wasn't about revenge, it was about recognition of my value, and it seemed that recognition was finally coming. By the 4th week after my dismissal, the calls became more frequent. Joseph, Troy, even Ethan, with unofficial pleas for help. I maintained my distance, giving vague responses when I bothered to answer at all. While they scrambled, I was busy. I'd set up meetings with 3 competing firms, not looking for employment, but exploring the market landscape. I needed to understand my position of strength. On a bright Tuesday morning, exactly 1 month after I'd cleaned out my desk, Logan himself called. "Dana," he said, his voice straining to maintain its usual confidence, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. The board and I have been discussing your departure, and we feel there might have been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," I repeated, keeping my voice flat. "About what exactly?" "About your value to the startup," Logan said, the words clearly difficult for him to utter. "We'd like to bring you back on as a consultant to help with the transition." I almost asked, "What about nobody remembering my contributions?" but decided against it. No need to reveal my hand so early. "I'm not interested in consulting," I said, "but I appreciate the offer. Dana, be reasonable. We're talking about a significant consulting fee, 6 figures for a few weeks of work." "I'm quite busy at the moment," I replied, echoing my response to Joseph. "Best of luck with everything." Leah Parsons stood frozen, phone pressed tight to her ear, heart hammering against her ribs. Valerie's words hung in the air, acidic, illuminating betrayal as the wind rattled the blinds. Fingers prickled with anger, the blue glow of her monitor flickering against her clenched jaw. If Seth had stolen her work, what else had he buried? By morning, would she even have a way to fight back? Or was this simply the beginning? As the call ended, Leah dialed Valerie again. "Logan just called offering a consulting position. 6 figures. The desperation in Seth's voice was palpable. "They're getting desperate," Valerie replied, "but we need to tread carefully. Have you been monitoring their product?" Leah had. Quantum Shift's client-facing dashboard was down, complaints flooding their Twitter support. Their stock price had plummeted 15% in just a week. "It's not looking good for them," Leah confirmed. "Perfect," Valerie said, her tone sharp. "Did you know Logan presented your authentication system as his own creation to the investors?" A cold shock ran through Leah. "What?" "I have a contact on their board. Logan's been taking credit for your work for years. The investors think they're funding his vision, not realizing the technical backbone is entirely yours." The revelation hit hard. It was one thing to dismiss her. It was another to steal her credit. This crossed a line she hadn't anticipated. "What's our next move?" Leah asked, her voice hardening. "We wait 1 more week," Valerie advised. "Let the situation deteriorate further. Then we send a formal notification of retained intellectual property rights." "Can we do that?" Leah questioned, recalling the employment contract she had signed. "The contract covers work done within your employment. But your custom authentication system? You developed the initial prototype on your own time before joining Quantum Shift. You have the dated GitHub repository to prove it. You brought it with you, refined it for their purposes, but the core IP could be argued to remain yours." Leah felt a surge of determination. This was more than just a fight for recognition. It was about reclaiming her legacy. The rain began to patter against the window, a soothing rhythm amidst the chaos. She could almost hear the rustle of leaves outside, whispering promises of resilience. As the days passed, Leah watched the turmoil unfold at Quantum Shift. Each complaint, each drop in stock price, felt like a small victory. She was no longer the undervalued employee. She was the architect of her own comeback. But would it be enough? Would she finally get the respect she deserved? Or would Seth's ambition bury her contributions forever? The clock was ticking, and Leah was ready to make her move. I remembered those early days clearly, coding in my apartment on weekends, developing the authentication system as a personal project before Logan ever approached me about joining Quantum Shift. I had mentioned this to Logan when I was hired, but he had dismissed it as unimportant. Now, it seemed that dismissal might cost him dearly. "So, we have leverage," I said slowly, understanding dawning. More than leverage, Valerie replied. We have a legal claim that could freeze their entire operation if we push it. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. I had walked away from Quantum Shift, feeling powerless. Now, the tables had turned so completely that I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. 5 weeks after my departure, the situation at Quantum Shift reached a breaking point. Their stock had fallen another 20%, and rumors of client departures were circulating in industry forums. My phone had stopped ringing, a silence more ominous than the desperate calls had been. I was at home watching a documentary when my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was shocked to find Olivia Harris, the lead investor from Threshold Ventures, standing on my porch. "Ms. Whitaker," she said, her expression serious. "I apologize for the unexpected visit, but this couldn't wait. May I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her enter. Olivia had always been cordial during investor presentations, but we'd never spoken one-on-one. "I'll be direct," she said, settling onto my couch. "Quant Shift is in trouble, and I believe you know why." "I've heard there are some technical challenges," I replied carefully. Olivia fixed me with a penetrating stare. "The authentication system is failing, and nobody can fix it." Logan assured us they had redundancies in place for key personnel departures, but that was clearly untrue. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. The city lights flicker through the loft windows, casting sharp shadows that dance on the walls. Leah Parsons presses her back against the cool glass, heart racing. Olivia's words hang thick in the air. $10 million, misrepresentation, a secret meeting. Leah's jaw tightens. Her pride clashes with disbelief. She leans in closer, voice trembling. What exactly did Seth say? And how far will the board go to protect their interests? Olivia watches her intently, the tension building. Will Leah spill the truth now, or risk everything by staying silent? Leah reflects on those early days, coding in her apartment, dreaming big, developing the authentication system. That was her baby. Seth had brushed off her contributions when they launched Quantum Shift, but clearly that oversight was about to blow up in his face. "So, we have leverage," Leah finally admits, piecing together the shocking turn of events. "More than leverage," Valerie replies, a glimmer of hope igniting. "We hold a legal claim that could halt their whole operation." Leah leans back, processing the weight of those words. 5 weeks after leaving Quantum Shift, whispers of chaos swirl in the industry. Their stock is plummeting. Murmurs of client defections permeate every tech forum. Then, one day, the doorbell pulls Leah from her thoughts. She opens it to find Olivia, the lead investor. "Leah," Olivia says, her voice serious, "I need to talk, now." Leah hesitates, then lets her in. Olivia settles onto the couch, her gaze intense. "Quantum Shift's in trouble, and you know why." Leah's mind races, aware of the chaos brewing behind the scenes. "I've heard there are some technical challenges," she says, treading carefully. Olivia's eyes pierce through her facade. "The authentication system is failing, and Logan lied about everything. About you." Leah swallows hard, the disappointment settling deep within her. "Logan's crafted a narrative that dismisses your genius. He secured funding on false promises." "So, what's the plan?" Leah asks, her curiosity piquing. "I'm here to propose you join an emergency board meeting tomorrow." Leah's stomach flips. She'd dreamed of moments like this, yet doubt creeps in. She considers Olivia's proposition. Risky, yes, but also a chance to reclaim her truth. "I'll need to consult my attorney," Leah finally replies, weighing her options. Olivia nods, heading towards the door. "The meeting's at 10 a.m. I hope to see you there." Leah's heart pounds as the door clicks shut behind Olivia. What if this is her chance to finally reclaim what she's owed? She can almost feel the rain scent heavy in the air, a promise of change. But at what cost? Fluorescent lights glared off glass, throwing sharp lines across faces strained with anticipation. Leah's pulse pounded, matching the terse rhythms of keyboard clicks as staff peered up, sensing disruption. Seth stood by the conference room, smile fixed, eyes calculating. Valerie's grip tightened on Leah's sleeve. Was this just another performance, or the moment Leah finally shattered their version of the truth? The air felt electrified. Who would break the silence first? "This is an interesting development," Valerie said, her voice steady. "Earlier than I expected, but potentially advantageous. If you attend, you'll be speaking from a position of strength, not desperation." Leah's mind raced. What about our original plan, the formal notification? We can still proceed with that. In fact, I'd recommend sending it tonight before the meeting. That way, they'll be aware of your legal position when you walk into the room. Leah nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. That night, she barely slept. Tomorrow would be a confrontation she hadn't sought, but now welcomed. She wasn't going in seeking revenge, but she was determined to set the record straight. Seth had tried to erase her from the narrative of Quantum Shift's success. Tomorrow, she would write herself back in, this time indelibly. The Quantum Shift offices looked exactly the same as when she'd left 6 weeks ago. Yet, everything felt different. Leah walked through the reception area with Valerie beside her, turning heads as they passed. Whispers followed them down the hallway to the main conference room. When they entered, the tension was palpable. Around the long table sat the board members, including Olivia, 3 other investors, and the startup's executive team. Seth sat at the head of the table, his usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. Joseph, the CTO, looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Miss Parsons, thank you for joining us," Olivia said, rising to greet Leah. "And this must be your attorney, Ms. Knowles." "That's correct," Valerie replied smoothly, setting her briefcase on the table. "We received your invitation and are here in good faith. But I should note that we delivered a formal notification of retained intellectual property rights to Quantum Shift's legal team last night." Seth's face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. You signed an employment contract that clearly states all work product belongs to the startup." "I'm aware of what I signed," Leah replied calmly, her heart racing. The moment had arrived. Would she reclaim her narrative, or would Seth's version prevail? The stakes were high, and the air crackled with tension. The room went silent, everyone staring at the glowing screen. Seth's jaw tightened, the cursor blinking over an email that could change everything. Leah's knuckles whitened around her laptop as she fought to keep her composure. Victor Lee, the silver-haired investor, studied both of their faces, his hand hovering near his coffee. Olivia's eyes darted between the display and Seth. Did this revelation just tilt the balance? No one dared breathe as the evidence scrolled by. Whose truth would stand up to scrutiny? But the authentication system in question was developed before my employment began. I have documented proof, including the original GitHub repository with timestamps. Leah's voice was steady, a sharp contrast to the tension in the air. Victor leaned forward with interest. "Is this true, Seth? Did you know about this?" Seth shifted, irritation flashing across his face. "Leah's making misleading claims. Sure, she had some initial repository, but anything substantial came during startup hours." It was as if his words were designed to smother the spark of truth Leah was igniting. With an unwavering determination, she retrieved her laptop and connected it to the conference room display. "With your permission, I'd like to share some evidence." Olivia nodded, and Leah pulled up the GitHub repository, showcasing a commit history clearly tracing back to before her tenure at Quantum Shift. "Now," Leah continued, "here are emails between us from early in my career at Quantum Shift. I mentioned bringing my authentication system to the project." She felt the weight of every eye in the room on her. In these communications, Seth acknowledged my prior work but never formalized any transfer of intellectual property rights. The tension snapped as board members exchanged uneasy glances. Leah pressed on, eyes fixed on the screen, confident. And look here at the slides from our seed round presentations. The authentication system is recognized as a key competitive edge. But my name? Absent from the credits entirely. Victor removed his glasses, a telltale sign of brewing trouble. Seth, you portrayed yourself as the technical visionary behind these systems. I supervise their development, Seth exclaimed. Supervision isn't the same as creation, Leah countered, her voice cutting through the tension. Your oversight consisted mainly of setting unrealistic deadlines while taking credit for my results. Joseph, the CTO, finally cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. A storm was brewing. What would happen next? Would Leah reclaim her narrative, or would Seth's version of the story trap her in the shadows? Tension hung thick, ready to snap. I can confirm that Dana was the principal architect of the authentication system. Without her, we can't maintain it properly, as the past 6 weeks have demonstrated. Logan glared at Joseph, but the damage was done. The investors were now looking at Logan with open suspicion. What exactly are you seeking here? Miss Whitaker asked another board member. Valerie stepped in. My client is not looking to destroy Quantum Shift. She believes in the product she helped build. However, she requires proper recognition of her contributions, appropriate compensation for her intellectual property, and guarantees against future misrepresentation of her work. And if these terms aren't met, Logan challenged, then the notification stands, Valerie replied coolly. Quantum Shift will be legally prevented from using the authentication system, effectively rendering your product non-functional. The reality of the situation seemed to dawn on everyone simultaneously. Quantum Shift's $10 million valuation, their entire business model hung in the balance, and I, the engineer they had so easily dismissed, now held the key to their survival. The emergency board meeting continued for another 3 hours. As discussions intensified, Logan's position weakened with each revelation. The board members, initially skeptical of my claims, grew increasingly convinced as more evidence emerged. Victor Lee called for a brief recess during which the board members convened privately. When they returned, Olivia Harris addressed the room with a newfound authority. After careful consideration, the board has made several decisions, she announced. First, we're initiating an immediate leadership change. Logan, we appreciate your vision in founding Quantum Shift, but it's clear that there have been serious misrepresentations under your leadership. Logan's face went pale. You can't be serious. I built this startup from nothing. With Dana's technology, Victor Lee added pointedly, a fact you deliberately concealed from us. Second, Olivia continued, we're offering Dana a new position as Chief Technology Officer with appropriate equity compensation and full recognition for her past contributions. My heart raced. This was more than I had expected. Additionally, she said, we're proposing a licensing agreement for the authentication system with royalties on all future revenue derived from its use. Valerie and I exchanged glances. This addressed nearly everything we had hoped for. And finally, Olivia concluded, the documentation was comprehensive and accessible, ensuring that the startup would never again be dependent on a single person's knowledge. After the announcement, Olivia approached me, smiling warmly. The investors are impressed with the turnaround. User complaints are down 87% and we're seeing former clients return. It's a team effort, I replied, genuinely proud of what we had accomplished. True, but your leadership has been the catalyst. By the way, have you heard about Logan? I shook my head. Logan had chosen to leave the startup entirely, rejecting the board's offer of an advisory role. He's trying to launch another startup, Olivia said, but he's finding it difficult to secure funding. Word travels fast in this industry. I felt a momentary pang of sympathy. I hope he learns from this experience. As do I. Olivia agreed, though some lessons come at a higher cost than others. Later that day, I received an unexpected email from Logan. It was brief. Dana, I owe you an apology. I should have valued your contributions instead of trying to diminish them. The startup is better off in your hands, Logan. I sat at my desk, contemplating how to respond. In the end, I kept it simple. Logan, thank you for the apology. I wish you success in your future endeavors. Sometimes the most valuable lessons are the most painful ones. Dana, it wasn't about forgiveness or forgetting. It was about acknowledging the truth, something I had fought for and finally achieved.